Campers, it's me, Ari Lehman, the first Jason Voorhees. From Friday the 13th, I'm here with AJ, and he's got the juiciest slice ready for you. It's dripping with blood. Jason never dies.
Salutations, all. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if it's the first time you're seeing my porcine face, and wondering how a roadkill razorback hog, given to bloating and flies, can make videos. Hint, possession.
Oh, Lord.
Should any of my nuggets of pyrite shine in your eyes with uninhibited luster, please like, subscribe, and share.
Yes, yes.
In this video, I'm talking about my all-time favorite horror movie, the pinnacle of the form, Tobe Hooper's enduring classic, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
What happened was true.
I recently had the pleasure of introducing the film to a young newlywed couple. It's always fun to see reactions, and they didn't disappoint. The artist responsible for the cut behind me seized upon the inclusion and disappearance of Franklin's knife. I could tell she felt it would in some way factor in the third act, would perhaps play a role in Sally's escape. Why did she have that sense? Basically, we the audience, through immersion in over a century of moving pictures, have been trained through a variety of story tics and film techniques to be easily persuaded to have certain expectations. For instance, if a wild-eyed old man shows up, however crazy what he's spouting sounds,
"You'll never come back again."
Oh, shut up, Ralph.
"It's got a death curse."
the audience now firmly knows he's the soothsaying harbinger that the characters would be smart to hear out, but will dismiss offhand.
Well, I'm sincerely glad to hear that, for all our sakes.
Another way the audience is primed is through foreshadowing. Mention an old curse, the curse will likely have a bearing. The Chekhov's gun principle stipulates that there be nothing extraneous in a story, something Ernest Hemingway found absurd. Feeling loose threads leave room for audience interpretation. In modern understanding, it comes down to a simple rule. If a gun is introduced in the first act, it has to be fired, or in some other way significantly used in the third, or if necessary, sooner. What's important is that the payoff is given and not denied. This is literally played out hundreds if not thousands of times, applied in a variety of ways to prefigure a tool, weapon, or other implement that will play a relevant and noteworthy role. From James Bond getting a rundown of new gadgets, to Buzz's tarantula in Home Alone, to the shotgun in X. Because at this point, the expectation is a foregone conclusion, films can run the risk of frustrating the audience if an element is introduced that remains unused, and therefore at tail's end unresolved. For instance, if you have a shot in, say, a rubber reality slasher of a paper cutter, the film had better at some point offer up a wicked paper cutter kill, and anything less is a straight up failing. I'm looking at you, Hello Mary Lou Prom Night 2. Pretty solid flick otherwise, but I digress. The seminal tale of a van full of day trippers who run afoul of a mentally challenged behemoth left without supervision in an isolated farmhouse has received the ample critical assessment it deserves. But it's one of those flicks that will always have jewels and precious metals to mine. Here we arrive at Franklin's knife. This simple pocket knife plays quite a substantial role. Shortly after its introduction, they invite a rather idiosyncratic hitchhiker with odd mannerisms and an odder appearance
I think we just picked up Dracula.
to join them in the van.
Where you headed, man? South?
Never let it be said Franklin isn't personable. Soon he's orchestrating with the pointy tool while talking shop with the unabashedly weird stranger.
The place where they shoot the cattle in the head with that big air gun thing.
Oh, that gun's no good.
As much as he likes talking meat,
My family's always been in me.
A whole family of Draculas.
like a cat zoning in on a flickery movement, Something else has captured his immediate interest. Bringing attention to such an implement, all sharp and glinty, proves a bad idea when the hitchhiker decides to take it for a thorough test drive.
What are you doing?
To determine how it handles. A demonstration of self-harm, sure to give heebie-jeebies to all but the most hardened.
Oh, come on.
What are you doing to yourself?
Not a doctor, but he perchance suffers from non-suicidal self-injury disorder. That manifests as compulsive masochism. The feel of steel kissing his flesh, like a shark smooches a seal, clearly borders on orgasmic. He seems to luxuriate in the endorphin rush, the stitch of self-mutilation a real thrill, although I think it would take more than one stitch to close up that gash. But luckily, the hitchhiker doesn't seem like one to fret too much over a festering wound. Blood from a slit, that verged on some kind of divergenizing besides. Without a doubt a first time for the knife.
Spend most every day in a sidewalk.
Franklin certainly seems to see his knife in a new light after it tasted corpuscles. The horror in his eyes certainly paints a picture of a man who just saw war for the first time.
That's the reason that I have this knife. But wait.
It also leads to a little dick measuring when the hitchhiker pulls out what he brings to the party. Like a kid with a particularly treasured toy, he wants to show it off. He wants them to see the shimmer and the shine, and why it's so special.
It's a good knife. I'm sure it is, man.
If anybody would be an authority on a cutting instrument, it seems like he's the guy. This might all be a misunderstanding. He's probably just offering shaves, right? He seems like the sort of jack of no trades that does a lot of things to make a buck. Why else would he want to capture Franklin's astonishment for posterity?
It's a nice picture. You can pay me now. Huh?
If not for profit. Is it in your best interest to appease the crazy guy with a straight razor? Ante up a nominal amount of money for his poorly rendered photo? Franklin doesn't think so, and their passenger torches his image. Not like he smears his reputation. Like literally. The hitchhiker, still in a state of excitement because it's pretty obvious to him they're forging lifelong friendships here, wants to be wound buddies with Franklin, since it's maybe too soon to be blood brothers. Since this kind of spontaneous violent behavior is always misunderstood by the non-violent normies. They jettison him like a flaming bag of poop kicked off a porch. That kind of unpredictability is a hell of a scary trait, and he already had the power to leave everyone on edge, with little more than his creepiness. Some people have the ability to make themselves unforgettable, and the hitchhiker leaves his indelible mark. While Franklin reels from the sudden attack, a worthless memento in the form of an overpriced bad photo is better than a memento in the form of a long, jagged bad scar, but what's done is done.
That's the last goddamn hitchhiker I ever...
Each now sporting a pretty nasty wound, Franklin could probably use a tetanus shot. Host to all manner of creepy crawlies, through exposure, the hitchhiker is probably generally immune to most everything.
I got no gas. You're out of gas?
Well, that's that. Revealing his pathology and nervous energy through an act of unintentional damage.
Franklin, you maniac, tearing up the van.
It's pretty obvious Franklin's distracted by their irregular encounter.
Yeah, I just started doing that.
And needs to square away what he's witnessed.
Hey, I bet that's some of that guy's blood.
So outside his basic understanding, it all seems to fascinate and boggle him to a degree.
Look at that. Look at that. You think that's blood? Yeah, I guess so.
That leaves him with an unnerving and unhealthy curiosity.
Oh, that's blood, all right. And that guy cut the hell out of himself.
And inspires the kind of inquiries he's never considered before.
You think you could do that to yourself?
If circumstances necessitate, I could do a lot of things.
Like crazy?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but, you know.
Gnawing with all the insidious vigor of maggots eating their fill out of a hobo's infected face wound. That sounds bad, but it can actually be life-saving. What the hitchhiker did won't stop chewing and chomping on his mind.
It takes something, though. I mean, just to do that to yourself like he did. God.
Before long, they're back to traveling.
Hey, that guy smeared blood all over the van.
And once they're down the road a piece, Sally makes a request.
Let me see your knife.
At this point, serving little purpose other than occupying his digits. After ensuring it's not too filthy, he readily hands it over. Now I'm sure that shirt wipe down put any dangerous pathogens in their place.
Hey, wait a minute.
Upon reaching their destination, Franklin is intrigued by the hitchhiker's perhaps sacred runic messaging. It certainly looks like some kind of symbol.
Come on, sir.
Here, man, you wash it up.
There's speculation it was meant to mark the group as potential victims. But if that's true, the cook sure didn't seem to give a damn when he was dissuading them from coming here.
Them girls now, they don't want to go messing around no old house.
What's important is that Franklin's meandering brings him to one very important realization regarding the absence of something very important to him.
Where's my knife? Kurt.
Pam and Kirk go off to find an old swimming hole.
There used to be a trail down between those two old sheds.
To never return, meaning as late afternoon comes on, the others are left at loose ends. Still haunted by their earlier encounter, Franklin fears the weirdo will somehow find them, and Jerry can't help but rib him a little, or a lot.
I told him where you live. I even gave him your zip code. He's gonna kill you.
Jerry.
Maybe in need of a safety blanket, Franklin is determined to find out the how's, whys, and what fors in regard to his knife.
What are you doing?
I can't find my knife. That knife won't do you any good. He likes that knife, remember?
Sally is very practical about the matter.
When did you have it last?
Well, I didn't have it last.
But deduction will prove to be her enemy.
You had it last. I gave it to you, remember? What'd you do with it?
Well, I don't know.
Facts are facts. She did have the knife last.
Didn't I give it back to you?
No, I didn't have it when I got out of the van.
Kind of shows how little credence Franklin warrants. Even knowing he'd bitch and moan about it to no end, she didn't go out of her way to keep an eye on it, knowing if it wasn't that, it was going to be something else.
You just never gave it back to me.
All right, I'll look for it.
With that whiny declaration, that's that. The knife is never seen again, much like Kirk, Pam, and Jerry. Franklin at least gets a reappearance of sorts in the sequel.
Franklin.
Good batteries. Franklin died without getting satisfaction beyond his accusation not being disproved, for his troubles instead getting the business end of a chainsaw.
Stop.
giving him the distinction of being the only one to get killed via the titular weapon. Although it's safe to say it was used to butcher the others. So, what's up with Franklin's knife? The nifty little pocket knife we saw was sharp enough to part flesh became something of an enduring mystery. It had to be somewhere in the van. How badly could Sally have lost it? Its disappearance created an interesting quandary, because that's a loose end just hanging out there, dangling as it were, without resolution. What did I even do to prompt an appearance from Angela? Talk about lack of resolution. I'll be worried about that all day. Anyway, that nothing further came of the knife when early on it played such a front and center role, used to literally horrify the characters and audience alike, through a supreme act of self-harm that causes most to feel ill at ease, if not outright disgusted, seems a strange choice. To draw a correlation between carried implements and how they are treated, the hitchhiker straight razor not only made more appearances, since it was almost always close at hand, it had ongoing utility in the proceedings.
Grandpa's the best. It won't hurt a bit.
And was even in his grip when he demonstrated why you don't step out into the road without looking both ways. The straight razor wins that dick measuring contest through screen time alone, because once Franklin's knife vanishes, it's like a character who showed up for a couple of scenes to never reappear. I'm looking at you and he knows you're alone, Tom Hanks.
Horror movies and the roller coasters and the House of Horror ride.
I want to go on that next.
And you can face death without any real fear of dying.
Good point. And it will play into this shortly. Now I rescind my criticism. Besides, it's not Tom Hanks' fault he was too likable to kill off.
When you're in a hole, stop digging.
Why introduce Franklin's knife, give it a prominent role, and then have it disappear for good? Was it an oversight, an overlooked detail, simply forgotten by the filmmakers? In a film so well made, so meticulously planned, it would seem dubious to conclude any such thing.
What the hell is supposed to do, you moron?
To ultimately answer that question, the film has to be looked at as a whole. I can't overstate what a marvel the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is. One of those flicks that for most will always get an emphatic.
That was a good one.
A lesson in simplicity and suspense, foreboding and fear, nerve-wracking anticipation, and nerve-shattering delivery. It's unrelenting, unremitting, and merciless. Disorienting, even dizzying. I posit that it introduces so much strange minutiae at such a tumultuous pace. The detail overload leads to a mental logjam, and extra susceptibility to suggestion and terror.
Sally!
A film that through blunt force trauma convinced at least 2 or 3 generations it was the highest watermark of gore. I would say that susses out. In fact, the film displays comparatively little blood spillage, and not one instance of flesh being cut, punctured, or in any way rented on screen, even by chainsaw teeth. Aesthetics, atmospherics, and assumptions have a lot of power to influence. Basically, every eclectic aspect woven in had a function to serve in a well-orchestrated illusion.
You laugh at an old man. There's them that laughs and knows better.
From the avant-garde narrative populated by straightforward characters on a road trip during a scorcher of a day, everything about the flick is unconventional, and it constantly plays against the expectation of what had up until the time of its making become established film grammar, especially for horror films, something I've touched on before. It's easy now to take for granted the dynamics and nuance of this film. Made in the slice-of-life cinema verite style, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre takes viewers on a journey that from the very beginning is drenched in death.
A 16-story building under construction in downtown Atlanta collapsed today, killing at least 29 persons.
And is designed to present an increasingly topsy-turvy, off-putting, and upsetting world.
Police in Dallas arrested a young couple today after complaints by neighbors led them to discover
One where no decorum is respected.
the 18-month-old daughter of the couple chained in the attic of a dilapidated house.
And even a handicapped man can be tossed unceremoniously in the ditch, just because. A careful fusion of recognizable reality
Hey, I got some barbecue. Who's the closest place to get gas?
and the outright surreal. Were utilized to unbalance viewers by making them see everything through a skewed and cockeyed lens.
There are moments when we cannot believe that what is happening is really true. Pinch yourself and you may find out that it is.
By the time the pulse-pounding climax arrives, the film has ruthlessly pulled all the strings and pushed all the buttons. Getting back to what Tom Hanks' character was talking about in He Knows You're Alone.
It's safe. You can leave the movie or get off the ride with a vicarious thrill and the feeling that you just conquered death. One hell of a first-class rush.
The point he's making is more than valid, and goes a long way in explaining horror's perpetually growing popularity, especially in times of strife. In the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I think the goal was to take it a step further, to so draw the audience into the contagious madness they might for an instant forget they are not themselves on the chopping block, and through an especially immersive steeping, actually feel the fear of oncoming death. The only crumb the film offers is that the damsel escapes the monster's den. Otherwise, it contrasted greatly from how horror films were typically made. It not only surmounted heretofore uncrossed boundaries, it vaulted over them, and all within the parameters of the ratings board.
There's more than one way to skin a cat.
When everything is added up, it's a frenzied, out-of-control and chaotic bouillabaisse, sure to shock and prickle the palate. Part of how the film achieves such a visceral impact is by trading in a lot of dichotomy and confusion, presenting conflict and contradictions aplenty. From a brutal killer who feels so menaced by his victims, he's driven to an existential crisis. To characters meeting the exact same fate one right after the other, as if led up the cattle chute to the slaughter.
Is anybody home?
Okay, you guys.
Our proxies are supposed to sashay into their own unique set pieces, not the same abattoir over and over like chattel, each to be utterly horrified in the instance before their inescapable exits. Among all this defiant storytelling, unloosed mayhem, and psychological tomfoolery, where does Franklin's knife fit in? Was its departure oversight, nor something else? I conclude it was entirely calculated, and very much intended. Remember those expectations I spoke of earlier? The ones we've been trained to react to like seals clapping for dead fish? Well, in this case, the clapping seals went unfed. Franklin's knife is just another way the film leads the audience astray, and down a blind alley, leaving us at loose ends. And maybe Hemingway was onto something, because loose ends sure leave a lot of room for speculation. In the end, Franklin's knife is just another narrative dead end, another means of knocking the audience off the axis of normalcy. The film has several. For instance, who are the three misfit brothers making up such a bizarre little family?
Look what your brother did to that dog! Yeah, he got no pride in his
How long have they not only been up to cannibalism, but spreading the love?
Where there was evidence of tampering, sheriff's deputies have found a reported dozen coffins robbed of all or part.
When did bones and other human and animal fragments become part of artistic expression? When did the creek dry up?
Rat. Must be it.
Why did the family mummify their dogs and grandparents? Why did Kirk not listen to Pam's intuition?
They're not going to want to sell us any gas. Let's just go back now.
What kind of belief system and moral compass were the cannibals laboring under anyway?
We were just having fun. You think this is a party?
Why was the house that belonged to Sally and Franklin's grandparents abandoned and allowed to go to pot? And why didn't Leatherface have a proper babysitter? These are just a handful of questions that expose narrative dead ends that the film takes no pains to provide answers for, because its job is to terrify and leave an enduring impression, not wrap up anything with a neat little bow. Franklin was a bit of a sad, pitiable sort, and it's a bummer that on his last day he should have lost such a prized object. Our friends actually seem to have quite a bit of sympathy for him. I would say I do too, but this will always make me laugh.
Do you think I said something made him mad?
Well, I've about reached the end of the rope, so I won't leave you dangling. Thanks for humoring my ramblings. Please share any refutations, opinions, accusations, japes, or other ideas in the comments below. And please join me for whatever I'm up to next time. Bye now.
Bye, creepy man! Keep it creepy!
He's a weird guy.
Goodbye.
That's the juiciest slice. Yeah. Not.